with students, and we were in the midst of getting students registered for the fall. And then the university decided that this semester, if students wanted to, they could elect a pass-fail option for one or all of their classes. And everybody, of course, the campus was closed, and we're teaching remotely online. And so this has been a surprise for lots of people. And but everybody kept asking me, well, what's Ray Titus doing? When I would talk to advisory board members and franchisors and sometimes multi-unit franchisees particularly as well. And they would say, what's Ray Titus doing during this time? And that's when I contacted Ray for the first conference that we've done. I think this is our 5th or 6th conference now. And we decided that, to do a session on, well, what should franchisors be doing? And that got us a bunch of people. And then we went into to the relief fund, and that got us a bunch of people. And we've just continued doing these conferences as topics come up. I was fortunate to meet Ryan Zink, at least online, to hear about him, Franchise Fastlane, and to hear how they're doing Discovery Days and how they are selling franchises. And of course, Ray has never stopped, as he'll tell you. Ray just doesn't stop. He's one of those CEOs. Years ago, I always loved a client who said to me, Don Dwyer of the Dwyer Group at the time, he was my client, and he said, the number one job of the president of the franchise company or the CEO of the company is to sell a franchise today. And if I'm not doing that, I'm not doing my job. And Ray's out of that same mold, that he's always involved in selling franchises for United Franchise Group. And I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to anybody who has seen Ray at trade shows particularly, or visited United Franchise Group in West Palm Beach. The West Palm Beach International Airport has got to be missing a United Franchise Group flying people in every day. Groups of people every day is the norm for Discovery Days. But now Ray moved all of that virtually. And so that's why we put together best practices for virtual Discovery Days, today's topic, today's conference. I first want to welcome all of you. I see that we are now at 155 people, and Cheryl's still getting people, making sure that they're cleared through the waiting room. We apologize for the waiting room glitch. We'll get that fixed. We are the Titus Center for Franchising, and we are in our 3rd year here at Palm Beach Atlantic University. We are unique. I don't know of another center any place in the world that teaches undergraduates franchising and gives them a concentration in franchising. There are universities that teach introduction to franchising and maybe a couple of other classes. We are the only one who awards a student who earns a business degree in marketing or management or international business. They can get a concentration in franchising, 3 academic courses, and they complete a 90-hour minimum internship with a franchise company. And by the way, I'm looking for more internships. I've got a bunch of students who need them for this summer, whether they're in West Palm Beach or other parts of Florida. If a student lives in Ohio and you're in Ohio and you can do an internship in Ohio for one of our students, please let us know. We're looking for internships for summer and for fall. I've got half a dozen students who will graduate next month. Most of them have jobs. They're hoping that those jobs will still be there next month, or that they won't get delayed. One of our students was the German Franchise Association Fellow this past fall, and he's been hired by Body Street in Munich, so he'll be taking off hopefully in June for his new position. And then we have students all over the country who are working in franchise companies. These are students, graduates, who know quite a bit about franchising. They're very familiar with Discovery Days. They're very familiar with franchise training and operations, and they know about the disclosure document. They know the items of a disclosure document. So when you hire one of these students, you're getting a head start, and you will find that we have terrific students at Palm Beach Atlantic University. We've really been blessed. We continue to pray fervently for an end to the pandemic, for a return to whatever the new normal is going to be in our lives. We pray, of course, for our students and for the university at large, for all of you who are involved in our programs, particularly for the Titus Center Advisory Board members. We have 40-some members of our advisory board. We meet twice a year in November and April. We didn't meet, obviously, this April, but many of our advisory board members are working hard on our behalf, helping us with a variety of programs. We appreciate all that. And we hope that our students are safe, that you are all safe and healthy and happy. Every day we hear about people who unfortunately have tested positive, but most of those people are getting through the virus and without too much damage, fortunately. So you are all in our thoughts constantly. Palm Beach Atlantic University is a Christian university. In case you're not aware of that, I see with 170 people here that some of you, you don't know about us. And so we're happy to have you on board. So let's get right into best practices in virtual discovery days. So how do you organize them? And then how do you conduct them? Does it look like this, a Zoom conference? And then what do you cover? Generally, discovery days will last 4, 7, 8 hours. People come to the corporate office. Sometimes they spend an overnight. What do you do online? How do you keep people in front of their computer for more than 30, 40 minutes? Difficult to do. Well, we've got 2 speakers today who've accomplished all this, who follow up on these leads, who go through their normal sales process, and they're selling franchises. And so I welcome Ray Titus to the program, and I welcome Ryan Zink to the program as well. Ryan, how many discovery days have you done most recently in the past week or so, and how many do you have on the boards to do? What's happening at Franchise Fastlane?
Yeah, thanks for asking, John. And first, just let me say thanks for the invite and agree. Praying for everyone, hoping that you're healthy and that your businesses are doing well. At Franchise Fastlane, we represent 14 brands, 13 that are currently hosting Discovery Days. 1 is brand new. So, we're doing anywhere from 3 to 4 a week. And they're going well. Actually, it was one of the topics that we dove into right away. How are we going to ensure that virtual Discovery Days are conducted with as much intentionality as our in-person discovery days? So I'm happy to say that we were cautious and nervous going into it. What kind of buying decisions are people going to make? How willing are they going to be able to participate virtually and then make a decision on an actual business and a franchise? But so far, so good. We're seeing some great numbers. In fact, we have 2 brands just this week. One of them hosted 27 buying groups yesterday, and the other hosted 16 buying groups with a big percentage of them moving forward. So far, so good. And I know we're going to spend a little bit of time today talking about some of those best practices that we're doing in the Discovery Days.
Great, thank you. And Ray, join us here and tell us about, I think you had 35 Discovery Days scheduled about a week ago.
Yeah.
How's it?
Well, first, thanks, John, for the introduction. And I do agree with Don Dwyer in that I agree that the CEO or president of every one of franchise organizations, they have a fiduciary responsibility to build the brand, to focus on building your brand and helping grow the brand and covering resales and not having closed stores. So I think we need to take that first. And then I also have to admit that for 34 years, I've been up on stages promoting everybody get face-to-face. And now nobody can get face-to-face. So, it's kind of hypocritical for me to be here and saying, here's how you do a virtual discovery day when I've been, saying that's the last thing you want to do. You want to get face-to-face with all your clients and all the people. So, but we have had no choice, obviously. So we've embraced this and, we are, so far, it's been really incredible for us to go from those, face-to-face discovery day tours to the virtual. We have somebody full-time that books these discovery day tours and organizes for each person, and you should see that calendar because there's about 5 different people that speak to each discovery day tour, myself included. My busiest day in the last 3 weeks has been 9 discovery day tours in one day, all done individually. Our average is 4 to 5 every day. We do have 10 different brands, and a lot of salespeople out there that are selling the franchises. So we do have some advantages in that regard. I will share with you that we should close. We're at 17 closed right now. We believe we're going to close 30 franchises this month. So we are focused on April. What I've done is, we're big strategic planning companies. So we do a 1 year and a 3 year plan, and we're always planning for the future and planning for the future. And I put that whole plan on the side and said, our whole focus is on April. We're going to focus everything. And I do, I did an hour with our brand presidents this morning on just April, just today. And so we're focused on the now and April, and making April and May the best months we can have to get through. We believe these next 2 months are going to be the 2 toughest months here in America. So we want to get through it the best we can. This month, our Discovery Day tours, the number we're looking at is about 70 to 75 Discovery Day tours for this month. So we're getting good at it. It took a little while. My first thought was these Discovery Day tours electronically, the quality is going to be much lower than our face-to-face. It's not been the case at all. Actually, the quality on the electronic Discovery Day tours has been better than the ones that came in on Discovery Day. And I have no idea why that's the case. It's easier to do the electronic Discovery Day tours. So to me, it doesn't make any sense still to me, but I'm just sharing with you that the quality of the people has been better. We have had people that have canceled Discovery Day tours, which we typically don't have on the face-to-face. But when you're booking as many as we're doing, and we're still seeing 4 to 5 a day, that's the key. And so there's going to be some unknowns right now. So I don't have enough data right now on the electronic Discovery Day tours to say that they're better, or we've closed more orders with them yet, because that is not the case. A lot of these orders that we're closing this month are people that have been met, in January or February, and we're finishing the deals through DocuSigns and not meeting them. Although we did have one franchise that we sold, a food franchise, that they have not met anyone face to face, and they have never even tasted the food, and they bought a food franchise. So I mean, that happened this past week, and so there are some really positive signs that this could be a new norm, but there's a lot of still unknowns. So I can't sit here and tell you that this is much better. This is what we have, and this is what we can work with, John. And that's really, where we're at.
So Ray, let's go back. Let's step back and say, once you realized you couldn't do face-to-face Discovery Days anymore, and you'd have to go online, how do you now convey the message to your leads that you're going to do an online Discovery Day? Is this now part of the process, the sales process, that it's a goal, that you don't bring people to Discovery Day right away, you bring them online for a Discovery Day at what point, and how do you groom them, how do you get them there? Talk about that part of it.
Well, that part is kind of easy, John. What I would tell you is nobody's doing a Discovery Day tour unless they have an application in, and unless they qualify for a franchise. We're not doing Discovery Days and wasting 5 people or 6 people's time, with people that you can't afford the franchise. So we still have the same qualifications that we had when we did, our regular Discovery Day tours flying in. And so none of that has really changed. It's just a matter of the salesperson getting with the prospect and saying, look, this is what we're now doing. But, to make it convenient for you, the CEO is there, and from our standpoint, the president, they're going to have an individual conversation with the president of the brand, the CEO, the marketing director of that brand, the trainer of that brand, and maybe a couple others depending on the brand. It varies with each one of the brands. So, you know, they have to dedicate, it's about 2.5 hours, our whole thing. I don't know how long yours take, Ryan, but ours take about 2.5 hours. Are yours much different?
Yeah, ours are, and I actually think it's neat that both you and I are talking discovery days, because I believe we do them different. Sounds like you guys are more of a one-on-one personal attention, and for our 13 brands, what we're doing is usually hosting 1 to 2 discovery days a month. And so ours will go a little longer. We'll typically start the night before with an hour-long happy hour, and we're intentional about that. The reason we do that is so people can work out the technology issues in advance, and they can work out the introductions in advance. And then we'll spend 4 to 5 hours the next day closing them out with one-on-ones. So yeah, it is a little bit different.
So Ryan, talk about how you get the prospect ready for your discovery day. What do you say to the lead? And I'm assuming, like Ray, these are leads that you've had. You didn't, some of them maybe you developed this month or since the pandemic began, but these could go back to January, February. So how are you processing them to get them ready for a discovery day?
You bet. We've recently coined a new term called facing the elephants. And what we mean by that is we attack that elephant in the room right away. We ask people, what's your feelings around COVID? How are you handling it? What's your personal situation? And we want to talk about if they truly are emotionally, mentally, financially ready to purchase a franchise. And then we explain to them our 90-10 rule. And what our 90-10 rule is, we want you to be 90% sure you want to move forward with this franchise, and we need you to be prepared to make a buying decision within 10 days after discovery day. If you don't qualify for our 90-10 rule, we don't want you to participate in our virtual discovery day. I've heard many brands are allowing individuals to come into these virtual discovery days that they wouldn't have otherwise allowed to do a face-to-face discovery day, and I think that's a mistake. You know, it might be more convenient for somebody to be able to sit in their living room and participate in a discovery day. So sure, let's just have them jump on the computer. But that is a mistake, because when those people start to participate in the discovery day, they're going to be asking questions that they would have figured out throughout the process, through validation, as they got into FDD review. They may turn out to be a bit of a distraction rather than somebody that is ready to move forward. And we only want to spend our time in virtual discovery days with those that have said, yes, I am 90% ready to move forward with this brand, and I'm prepared to make a buying decision within 10 days post-discovery day.
I think that, John, that Ryan's 100%. He's right on. We have not lowered our standards for discovery day tours just because they're electronic versus the regular. At all. I think that he is right on as far as that's concerned. I do want to take one step back, though, because I think it's important that if you have not had a meeting with your director of sales or your sales staff to really dig into all the positives of why people should be looking at buying a franchise right now. See, what I would bring up openly, and I did openly when this first came out with my director of sales and our sales staff all together, we went right into, this is the best time to buy a franchise that we have ever seen. This is the best time, not to open up your store, because we can't get you opened up right now anyway. By the time we find a location, negotiate a lease, do a build out, get permits, do training, get a grand opening, that's going to be 4-6 months down the road anyway. And this thing's going to be long gone, hopefully. And so why is this the best time to buy your franchise? And each one of us, there's a lot of positives. The finding locations, if you talked to me, 2 months ago, I would have told you the biggest hurdles are finding good locations, negotiating good leases, and finding good staff. Those would have been the 3 biggest things that would been hurdles or challenges. Now, none of them are challenges. So we have great locations are available out there. Landlords are willing to bend over as far as helping with great deals. Construction companies are giving even better deals. We're getting second-generation restaurants that we couldn't get before. So there's a lot of positives, and certainly with all the people that have been laid off, getting good staff is a big thing also. And so I would focus yourself, your director of sales, your salespeople first on all the positives that you have with your brand or at this time to open up, because the timing is, it's called a learning curve. Everybody's going to go through the learning curve. They're going to go through training. They're going to go through, and the learning curve could take 60 days, 90 days, depending on the brand. And so what better time to go through the learning curve than right now? Instead of watching Tiger King, let's watch some videos and webinars on products and services. Instead of instead of letting people driving you crazy at home, get on and let's get the training on the webinar and let's get ready for the rebound. Because we believe very strongly that the second half of this year is going to be like 12 months of business in the second 6 months of 2020. So, from my standpoint, it's our job to promote the positives, to focus our sales staff on the positives, and to get them focused on, why is right now a good time? Too many people are curled up in a ball, at home, and they're not doing anything. And it's crazy. I just don't understand it. I've got franchise owners. Look, I've got master license holders that have countries that are not doing anything. And I get it. But then in the same brand, I've got, people that are selling $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in business last week in safety masks and hand sanitizers and uniforms and, directional signage and all kinds of things. So, I think our job each week, I do a video out to our whole system about all the positives, the messages that franchisees are getting out there. And I know this is focused more on the virtual discovery days, John, but I think that some of this negativity that's out there and obvious concerns with this crisis are driving some of that as well.
Okay. So thank you, Ray. And let's go over to Ryan again. We've got a lot of questions coming in, and one of them for both of you, Ray can jump in as well. When do you disclose in this process? You're now talking to a prospect who's interested. How are you handling the disclosure? That's one of the questions we have.
Yeah, great question. For us, we have a process that we follow for all of our brands, and that starts with, of course, after they've been qualified, it starts with a recorded introduction call and then a follow-up in person, live introduction call. We dive into unit economics, which is basically just a repeat of the item 7 and item 19, and then we immediately disclose the FDD right after that. So a candidate's typically going to be about a week, week and a half, 2 weeks into the process before we're disclosing that FDD. Now, of course, right now is very unique, right? We have individual state registrations that are coming up, and even some of those states that have pushed back registration requirements. Quick side note on that, I think there's a misunderstanding. People believe because the states have pushed back some of their dates, that means that they can continue to work with candidates in those states once the initial FDD was originally going to expire. Let's say that would have been April 30th. That is not the case. You have more time to register that FDD in a state, but you cannot continue to work with candidates past that initial expiration date. So just a side note, because I know there's been some misunderstandings on that. And if you don't mind, outside of when we introduce the FDD, which is important because that gives them plenty of time to do their own personal review, plenty of time to get a legal review if they choose to, plenty of time to ask questions and validation, which starts after we disclose the FDD. I'm a data guy as well, and something that I just wanted to share with the group here is, since we started to move into virtual discovery days, we wanted to track what the response was of candidates based on COVID. And so beginning the week of March 14th, we added 2 categories to our CRM system. One was what we call dead lead. I guess you could call it exited or term it, whatever it is, but dead leads due to COVID. And the second is on hold leads due to COVID. And the interesting thing about this is the very first week we saw 8. So we manage about 1,000 candidates at any one time across the 13, 14 brands. The very first week, we saw 8 people that went on to exited status, dead status, and the same is what we saw for on hold. The next week, we saw on hold jump up to 35. The following week, we saw on hold jump up to 38, so about 3.5 to 4% of our overall pipeline. This last week, that went down to 19. So 19, at its peak of nearly 40 candidates going on hold due to COVID, now down to 19. On the dead lead status, at our peak, we saw 8 candidates a week that were going into the dead status. I just can't move forward right now. I can't think of anything but COVID. Last week, we only had one one of 1,000 candidates in our pipeline that said specifically due to COVID, I want to be I want to stop. And I think that goes back to Ray's point of there's more time than ever for people to explore an opportunity. Maybe they're not saying, hey, I'm ready to make a decision today, but they've either been terminated or they're working from home and they have that time to explore. So we like to say we are directors, we're not order takers. We are setting the example of now is the time to work through the process. Here's what you can expect to happen in our process. So I would encourage everybody to move into this with a positive attitude that maybe the candidate is different. You know, we're seeing that candidates aren't necessarily the entrepreneur they were before. We are seeing a tremendous number of people that are working from home now, and they want to explore or use that time to explore a franchise opportunity, which maybe in the past they were working 9 to 5, they had somebody looking over their shoulder so they didn't have capacity to explore that franchise opportunity. But now because nobody's looking over their shoulder, they're willing to explore the idea of controlling their own financial freedom. So I do think there's some real positives that we're seeing in the numbers already.
And John, I would share with you that if you start with the lead, which by the way, we're spending 25% of what we were spending in advertising. We've cut our advertising way down and we're seeing more leads. So we're working our database and we're getting more leads now than we have ever gotten. And that's because our salespeople are working the current database and that we are, everybody's in. It's not hard. I mean, before we get, 15, 20% if people would answer the phone or answer the email or answer us. Now it's like 60, 70% because everybody's home. And so you know where they are, they're at home. So, call them. And so we get a much higher percent of the leads. But we do a webinar. The way we work after that anyway is we would do a webinar individually, give them a presentation on the brand, kind of go through all of the normal firsts that we would do other than touring a store physically, which we now do by video. So we have a walkthrough video of a store and with the brand, and that's in a first. And then at that point, they're disclosed. We do it all through FranConnect. And so they get disclosed at that point, and it's all done, electronically. Then we set up to get the application. Once we have that financial application and they're approved, then they're set up for electronic discovery day. And then from there, we're into the next step, which is, an electronic deposit, which that's our next step. The process we take is we go from discovery day tour to a deposit for us, which is $9,500 and put toward the franchise fee when and if we agree on everything. And then once we do agree on everything, then we enter into the franchise agreement. The $9,500 goes toward that and we go into business together.
So Ray, you're normally face-to-face. I think you have like an 80%. If somebody comes to a discovery day in West Palm Beach, 8 out of 10 are going to become a franchisee. And
well, no, they 80%, John, 80% of them put a deposit down to become a franchisee.
Okay. What's it like now? How are those numbers the same, changing?
It's too early to call right now. I haven't, I've seen nothing but positives on the quality, nothing but positives on the numbers, and I haven't seen anything jumping out right now that says there's negatives. To Ryan's point, if I looked at our kills, which is probably the worst, you shouldn't use that word, but our dead leads, the dead leads are, I think we've only had like 1 or 2 since we started doing the electronic discovery day tours versus the month before where we had, face-to-face discovery day tours and we had a number of them, 4 or 5 of them. So, all of the signs point to this being the future, but it's not finalized yet. And I don't like to give advice to everybody to say, this is the new norm and this is what we should be doing because I don't know yet. I'll know more, I think, by the end of next month. We finish out this month as strong as we are. And then if we go into next month and if we do, what we're expecting to do in May, then I'll be in the new norm. This will be normal for us.
Okay, so Ray, another question, and Ryan, for you too. How are you concerned about the cultural fit for these prospective franchisees, particularly when you don't get to meet them face to face, not even at a trade show at this point? And Ray, you mentioned you signed one who you haven't met, who's never even tasted the food. Are you concerned about, are these people going to be good franchisees?
Well, look, isn't that always the question? And you're right. You're not seeing them face to face. So, I don't know, everything that we would normally get to see and know the same exact way. But yeah, I would say I have some concern but I have seen the quality of these electronic discovery days being better. So, while you can't base, purchasing a business on their resume, but there is, when we still get back together again and still make some decisions about these prospects, and still have our input from a lot of different people. And so, including our local salesperson and the team. So, from my standpoint, I think when you look at that, you go, yeah, I'm concerned. I haven't seen, where is this going to land, but I don't think it's going to be much different, John or Ryan. I don't think it's going to be much different than what we've always seen.
Ryan, how do you feel about this topic?
What a great question, right? I mean, we're trying to determine in a short virtual experience whether or not somebody's going to be a good family member, team member of ours for sometimes 10 years in these franchise agreements. I have a list in front of me of some best practices, and I just quickly went through and starred some that I think apply to this. First is that 90-10 rule. Let's not forget that, we spent weeks and weeks now in a discovery process with this candidate, getting to know them, hearing their questions. And so
that's being done one-on-one by your salesperson. That's a one-on-one, just like you would normally put somebody through a sales process. Okay.
You got it. Yeah. So our development director is going to be one of the most important points of information on whether or not we think that person's a fit. And quite honestly, we hold them accountable to make sure they're only bringing people that they think should be, they fit the 90-10 rule and are going to be a good franchisee. Next is, let's see how people interact via technology. Are they good with technology? Do they know how to work the camera? Do they have a good audio? What's going on when they ask questions? In the beginning, when we were hosting discovery days, we let people type into chat boxes. But we stopped that. And because we weren't interacting, right? What was happening is somebody was typing a question in a chat box and one person was answering. Now there's a raise your hand feature. So we ask our candidates to raise their hand. Then when they raise their hand, we break just like you would in person. They ask their question and we get to hear how articulate they are in asking the question. Are they spot on with asking the question? Let's see, what else do we have here? We require them to keep their video on. We want to be able to see them, see their physical reactions. And of course, in the end, we host one-on-one. We do at least a 20 to 30-minute one-on-one between a leadership member of the franchise and that candidate at the end. So between, how they're interacting, making sure they're qualified throughout the process, what kind of questions they're asking in the one-on-ones, we feel we get a pretty good sense in that time on whether or not they're going to be a good franchise fit.
And John, one other thing that I didn't mention that we've always had for Discovery Day tours prior to coming to Florida, to our headquarters, people had to have at least 2 or 3 conversations with franchise owners. So we still have that as a prerequisite, that they need to speak to franchise owners prior to coming on the electronic Discovery Day tour. We want them to speak to the validators, speak to the franchise owners locally, get a good feel for the business, the company, and what they think, and so it kind of elevates the candidate as well.
Yeah, great. Okay, also, Ryan, what's the happy hour? Talk about that. We've had some questions. How do you do a happy hour?
Happy hour is so important, and here's why. So what happy hour is, it is a non-threatening, unintimidating way for people to come in with a smile on their face and to accomplish a couple of things before the actual we'll host a happy hour the night before, call it 6 o'clock. Brand Spenga, they actually send branding everybody, so they're their Spenga glasses, or lots of our brands will send gifts that they can kind of talk about. But the real purpose behind happy hour is, one, make sure how it works, how they can get their audio going, because we want to spend 40 minutes because one of our candidates doesn't know how to do the next day during Discovery Day. The other is they get introductions out of the way. They get to talk about who they are, why they love the brand, why they're considering it, where, whatever else it is. And again, back to how they're going to be a good fit. Let's see them in in a casual environment. Let's hear if they're funny or if they're serious. Let's just try to get a sense of who they are as a person. So again, those three things: work the technical, get the introductions out of the way so we don't have to spend time, and let's see the casual environment.
John, we don't do that, and that's fine. We haven't had that. I mean, there's some candidates that we would have a dinner with prior to, you know, the Discovery Day tour. Maybe it's a master license person that I take out to dinner or something like that. But for the most part, we don't have that. The other thing I would say that where we differ a little bit is we do every one of our Discovery Day tours virtual, one-on-one. I think that they have, you know, while questions can help other candidates, there's certain things that will hurt other candidates. And so I've been in both circumstances, and I've found, for us at least, that we do much better in a one-on-one. While it requires a lot more work for everybody because you're doing it multiple times, they're much more effective because every prospect is at a different level and different timing. And lastly, what I would tell you is that I have found with these electronic Discovery Day tours is that the timing for the buyer is much better. And what do I mean by that? If we were booking a normal Discovery Day tour, you know, we want to get the best flight for costs, and you know, we pay for the flight and we pay for a hotel room, and so this sometimes is 7-10 days or longer out, and then we're doing a Discovery Day tour. So now this can happen the next day. And so the timing is, while the lead is much hotter and right in it, so we're not waiting that 7-10 days to book the Discovery Day tour. The speed of this is important, and that's a benefit for the electronic Discovery Day tours.
So we've had a few questions, people asking, do you record the Discovery Days, and are you willing to share with other franchisors a recorded Discovery Day so they can see what's going on? That's for both of you.
Go ahead.
For us, because we are a third party to the brand, right? We are an outsourced sales company. We do record them. We make them available for the candidates. It's not really my content to share with everyone. We'll be doing a video. Our president will be doing a video tomorrow that we'll share with you, John, and then maybe you can distribute out to everyone, just around how we manage Discovery Days, best practices. It's going to be a little bit of a repeat of this, but some new information as well. So while we probably wouldn't actually share the recordings of our Discovery Days, we'll share as many best practices as we can.
Okay.
Yeah, and John, I'm sorry, we don't record our Discovery Day tours that way. We do have one part of the Discovery Day tour, which is a tour of our facility. So, you know, from our standpoint, every one of the Discovery Day tours, there's one part that's the same, which is the host, which is the sales coordinator, takes them through a tour of our building, of our training facility, and just to show our company off a little bit in that regard. And the other side, that's then we just go from person to person to person. And these are really set presentations and Q&A with the prospect. Mine is all Q&A. I don't really have a set presentation with them. I just make myself available to answer questions about the company and the business, and talk a little bit about our history.
Okay. Ryan, back to your happy hour. There's a question about, are people actually drinking during the happy hour? Is it, and I assume the answer is yes.
You bet. I even typed it in there. I said yes. Yeah, why not? Right? I mean, it's not long. It's an hour. Maybe people have one glass of wine, so it's nothing too serious. They're sitting at home. Okay. But you bet. We want them in that fun, casual environment.
So lots of questions coming, and we'll try to get as many of them as we can. How long, Ryan, does a Discovery Day last? And who's involved in that Discovery Day? How many people from the corporate office are speaking? And then we'll ask Ray to give us his side.
So it starts the night before at happy hour, right? So we'll go 1 hour with a happy hour the night before. And then the next day we'll typically start about 9 o'clock. We ask people to log in at least 10 minutes in advance to make sure that they get it all worked out and they're comfortable in position. So we will have the founder typically start by kicking it off, telling the backstory, talking about the vision of the brand. And then we'll get into some of the key leadership. We will not present for more than 35, 40 minutes. If you get past 35, 40 minutes and you ask people to, continue to keep their attention all day long, it's difficult. They have distractions at home or whatever else. So every 35 to 40 minutes, we're taking at least a 10-minute break and we're switching presenters. We love to have compelling slides. We always want to make sure that the slides are, the brand of the slides are mimicking whatever slides we were using in the discovery process. So we want to keep brand consistent. And then key leaderships will come in. We'll have third-party vendors come in. Maybe we have a financing partner, a real estate partner, if that's applicable, marketing partner, whatever it is. We want to show that we have lots of resources that are available. That will typically go from about 9 to 2. And then we'll start our one-on-ones. Now, some of our brands have 2 to 3 candidates at Discovery Day. One-on-ones can go 30, 40 minutes if need be. Others of our brands, like one we just recently got done hosting, had 27 buying groups at a Discovery Day. So as you can imagine, we have to have the whole leadership team break out, have their individual one-on-ones scheduled in advance. So previously, face-to-face, it was no problem. We're at the end of the Discovery Day. We're just working against flight times. Now, because people have to log into technology, we pre-schedule each one of those one-on-ones with which key executive leader, and we'll typically give them about 20, maybe 30 minutes. And then hopefully we're done by 3 or 4 o'clock at the latest. But people in a group setting have been done since about 2.
So it's a full day, essentially, 5, 6 hours. You have lunch in there, you have breaks. Do you speak during the lunch to somebody? They're having their lunch and it's sent to them by the company, so you all have the same thing, or how does that work?
We try not to. And this is how we're learning. So in the beginning, we thought we were pretty clever. I think I even saw Red from IFPG on here. I told him this was a great idea. Now I found out it's a bad idea. We were sending lunch to people to eat at the same time we were eating. What we found is people don't want to eat on screen, right? And so now we just give them 30 minutes to go do their own thing. So 30 minutes, we're not going to present. You go eat lunch, take care of some personal stuff, and then come on back and be refreshed. So that's what we're doing today.
All right. And Ray, how does your process work?
Our is about 2.5 hours. The whole Discovery Day tour is about 2.5 hours electronically. And they start out with a sales coordinator who takes them on a tour of the facility here. They go over an agenda with them, who they're going to be speaking with over the course of the next 2.5 hours. And, that's usually what it takes. And so they go through the building, and then they go into, the brand. They typically will speak to the director of training for each brand. They'll talk to the director of marketing for each brand. And again, these presentations, I agree with Ryan, it's usually about 20 to 30 minutes, the most. And then we're switching out to the next one. We're not taking breaks in between though. We kind of move along, and they stay on. So it's about 2.5 hours. After that, they go to the brand president and answer more questions. And then they come to me, again, answering more questions, and they appreciate that. And then they finish out. So it's usually about 5 people, a tour of the building, and each person speaks for about 20 to 30 minutes. So it's about 2.5 hours.
Okay. What about the validation process? With franchises not operating today for the most part, is it still possible for a prospect to get in touch with franchisees, and are franchisees validating, or has that have people gotten a little less inclined to validate, or what's happening there? Again, for both of you. Start with Ray.
I would tell you that you have to switch it up. Where maybe you had certain validators that were doing it all the time for you. We have a greater opportunity now with electronic validation than we had face-to-face, because it was really being done regionally. So if my salesman in Denver, before the Discovery Day tour, he's taking people locally to franchisees in Denver. Now on the screen, we can go anywhere. So we can always find validators in all of our brands that are working or doing well. And at this moment, everybody's not down. I mean, I would tell you, we offered 2 months deferment of 50% of their royalties for the next 2 months. Out of 1,600 franchisees, I think we had 150 take us up on the deferment. So I would tell you it's 10% of our franchisees even took us up on the 50% on deferment. So there are challenges, John, where you got some people that are locked out or they just can't open. And so you have to switch it up and go to other areas which are doing good, and still doing okay in business.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ryan, how about
I couldn't agree with Ray more. The one thing I'll add is recognize that validation right now is even more important than it was in the past. So when this first started, we had a communication out to all of our franchisors to really think about how they were going to serve their franchisees now, and to remember that whatever they do to their franchisees is going to come up on every validation call. Because the new validation question is, how is your franchisor leading through the time of COVID, right? And so you're either going to have a franchisee say, oh, they are fantastic, here's what they did, similar to what Ray just said. They've offered some concessions, or they've offered some new support in this way, or whatever it is. And that is going to give that candidate a tremendous amount of confidence that they're working with a franchisor that understands the franchisee and cares. Or you're going to get the franchisee that says, communication's been bad, we really haven't had much, I'm really scared. And that's going to scare away the candidate. So right away, we said franchisors, communication's the key, showing support. Not everybody can offer financial support. Not every franchisor has the ability to say, we're going to cut royalties or whatever else, but figure out what is applicable and meaningful to your franchisees and go and over communicate it.
I couldn't agree more with Ryan, John. I think that when a prospect hears from a franchisee, especially now that they're doing okay, or the sales are up, or they were able to have a good day, then it's even that much better. So yeah, I mean, I saw someone's question, John, asking about, would you have franchisees on Discovery Day? I mean, I would. If you're not going to have them before, I kind of like with our salesperson locally working with the prospect and kind of setting them up to speak to franchise owners in that way prior to the Discovery Day. But I've seen many franchise companies have franchisees that answer questions. And when we were doing our fly-ins here, we would always take them out to see a couple local franchise owners, and it would be helpful. So I don't think that's a bad idea at all, either before or during. But I definitely would not wait till after. I'd do it before or during.
And when do you, Ray, how are you closing the Discovery Day? What happens? What's the next step after Discovery Day?
The next step, John, I'm glad you asked that question. The next step we have for you is the opportunity to put down a totally refundable deposit. It's $9,500, and it secures an area for you, but allows us to go to work where we're doing demographics and traffic counts and business counts and digging into finding out, how much are the renovations going to be? How much free rent can we get? And a lot of the particulars about that specific brand we'll get into at that point. And if you don't like anything, the deposit's 100% refundable. And if you do like it, it goes toward the purchase of the franchise, John. So it's a real safe way to be able to do business. And that would be your next step, John. And what's going to happen after this Discovery Day is that our local regional vice president that you're working with, Troy Thomas, he'll be following up after this to give you a call. And, typically, John, after this call, you're going to get off the call, and 5 minutes later, you're going to say, why didn't I ask this or why didn't I ask that? And you're going to come up with other questions. And so they're going to follow up with you and answer those questions. And at that time, if you're comfortable, you can put down a deposit.
Great. Ryan, what do you do?
Well, I think that's a great idea. I love it. We don't go as far as a deposit, but I wrote it down because I think we should consider it. We close out with one-on-ones, and then we reiterate the 90-10 rule. So, and I saw a question there. What is the 90-10 rule? The 90-10 rule is anybody that comes to Discovery Day needs to commit to the 90-10, meaning that they're 90% sure they want to move forward with the brand, and that they're committed to doing so 10 days after Discovery Day. So we reiterate that, and then we get an approval from the franchisor or a denial, whatever it is. We call the candidate the very next business day and we say, congratulations, you've been approved. We'd like to know if you're leaning in or leaning out is the way we put it. And if they're leaning in, we say, fantastic. Now back to the 90-10, you have 10 days to sign and pay. Let's go ahead and get that scheduled and on the book. So we have pre-prepared all of the documents prior to Discovery Day and all those things. So the disclosure periods are passed, and we typically are ready to sign at any point.
Great. And when, Ryan, when are these people going to open a business? When are they going to come for training? How are you figuring that out? Because there's, Mr. Trump says we're going to open immediately or as soon as possible, but what's happening?
Yeah, for us, it's brand by brand, right? We represent service brands. We represent B2B, B2C, fitness, brands that work inside of high schools. So it's brand by brand specific. And, one thing that I did notice last week is the 5 of the top 6 lead generators of our brands last week were service-based brands. And so I think what's happening is people are starting to say, okay, what are the lower cost, less risk, more reliable revenues? Not that any of the other ones are less reliable, but they're just not confident yet as to when they're going to open. So we are starting to see maybe a little bit of a shift towards some of those B2B and B2C service brands.
Okay. And Ray, how about your groups? When are they going to open? When can new businesses?
All of our brands have got their training done online. So we have actually shifted we did a training school this past week for Transworld, and the whole thing was online. And so we have moved our training to that because we don't know how long we're going to be in this mode. So again, like Ryan's saying, depending on the brand, if this is a food business, now we have to find a location or hopefully a second generation restaurant. We've got work to do, John, prior to them coming to training school. So, Venture X, the build out takes, 6 to 8 months. And so, by the time we find a location, get permits and do the build out, it's a 6 to 8 month process. So selling somebody a business today at Venture X, they'll, hopefully be opened, in the end of the third quarter or fourth quarter. And so we've got time in between that. I did see one question about the deposit. Is it offered to everyone? Yes, we do offer everyone an opportunity because they've already been qualified up to that point. So everyone on Discovery Day, but the deposit is 100% refundable by both parties. It's a one-page document that is a legal document that is in my FDD, and it does go toward the franchise fee. And so we've been able to do that really, really successfully, and it helps a lot. I mean, typically we're picking up, anywhere from 25 to 40 deposits a month, depending on, what's going on out there.
And why are they refundable? You got a question there in the chat room. Why do you make them refundable?
Because if I was buying a business, I would want to find out a lot of these details before I made a final decision about the business. Like, what's my marketing area going to be? What's my location going to look like? How much free rent can I have? And I think they're important questions. So we don't want anybody in the system that isn't positive about all those things going in. So it's just the way we've done it for over 30 years, and it works, and go from there. Who's ever assuming that the money's going to stay in an escrow account? I saw the question. I guess that's Eric. No, it does not sit in an escrow account. It comes right into our organization. It is refundable. They do get it back, but it does not sit in an escrow account. No.
Okay. So Ray, I've known you a long, long time. I know that you're always thinking. The wheels are always turning. What's wrong with the virtual Discovery Day today, and you're going to change it tomorrow? What are you going to make it? How are you going to make it different?
I think that I think we're doing a lot of really good things right now, and we're learning as we're tweaking it, going through this. We may involve franchisees that we go, in the future if they have more questions. For the brands, even though they speak to 2 or 3 franchise owners before it, we may do more of that. At this stage, I feel pretty good about the process that we're doing. It's working to this point. I'm optimistic, but I still want to hold back a little on. I haven't seen the full data, John, so I can't sit here and say we're doing everything right or we're doing everything wrong or what needs to be changed at this stage until I see another month. I think that's important.
Are you doing international Discovery Days as well?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Ryan, what are you going to change about your Discovery Day? What do you need to tweak?
Great question. Actually, instead of saying what I'm going to change, how about I talk about what we've already changed based on what we learned the first 30 days. So I got a quick list here. I'll go quick. First off is we are using the Logitech C90 or 930E business webcam. It's a great webcam. It's $130. It's been doing the job for us. Although you can't just have a single camera. What we found is we need a second tablet. So when you think about setting up your virtual Discovery Day, and remember, this is for group Discovery Days, not one-on-one. So these don't necessarily apply to one-on-ones. But we set up the Logitech camera to see the full room, everybody that's participating, executives, corporate members, etc. And then we have an individual tablet or computer on the speaker. So it gives them a sense of the full room if somebody else is speaking, and an individual tablet focused up in on the speaker. Also know that if the speaker is not close to the tablet, they should be wearing AirPods or something like that so you can clearly hear what they're saying. The other is we have all of our development directors purchase Selfie Sticks. I never thought I'd say that. But the reason they purchase Selfie Sticks is because whenever we're doing a tour of a location or on location with customers, we need something stable. We don't want shaky hands trying to do that. So we have something stable. We have the ability to have somebody talk while also giving the tour. I talked about the 90-10 rule, so important. We send gifts and needed items in advance. We say practice makes perfect, then do it again. Prep calls. On prep calls, we tell people video needs to be on. They need to be on 10 minutes early and be on time, and that they're virtually going to raise their hand for questions. Everybody that's in the room for the Discovery Day needs to turn off the Wi-Fi on their computers and on their cell phones. Keep it on the computers. But we have a lot of bandwidth going on with lots of people, so turn off all Wi-Fi that's not essential. We turn off all notifications on computers so emails don't pop up. We test sound previously. We mute all participants, and if they have a question, we ask them to raise their hand, and we will unmute them, and then we'll have that interaction. Have an MC. Make sure one person is designated for transitions. We don't want one person to say, okay, let's hand it to the next. Timing, no more than 30 minutes at a time with 10-minute breaks. Lunch, give them 30 minutes on their own for that. We do 3D tours for all of our retail locations. I believe they're using virtual 360 or something like that. I'm almost done here. Clear the elephants, make sure we address COVID before, during, and after. We want to make sure that we understand where candidates are, and then end with the one-on-ones. So that's just a quick little list of some best practices for us.
Great. All right, so we've I can't see everybody's hands up with 150 people in the gallery online at the same time. We are up against time. You can ask additional questions, send them to Titus_Center@pba.edu. I'm happy to get on the phone with anybody who needs additional help. I can put you in touch with Ryan and Ray, or you go to them directly. It's easy. These are guys who are busy, but easy to get in touch with. The Titus Center is educating the future generation of franchisors and franchisees, and your employees as well, perhaps. And we appreciate time you spend with us. We want to tell you more about the Titus Center. Please go to TitusCenterForFranchising.com. You'll see that our conferences are posted there. This one will be up in a couple of days. We also will announce future conferences, and we look forward to be in touch with you. Get on our Friends of the Titus Center list. Just simply send us your email and let us know you want to be there. Titus_Center@pba.edu. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Ryan and Ray. Take care.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.